What if someone stepped away from work for 15 years and still collected a paycheck? What if that paycheck kept arriving month after month, year after year, while everyone else kept showing up at the office? Would you call it luck, fairness, or a flaw in the system no one ever fixed? That is the story of Ian Clifford. He has been away from active duty at IBM since 2008. He never returned to the office, yet he never stopped being an IBM employee. His absence was not a vacation. He had serious mental health struggles that made work impossible. At first, it was just standard sick leave. But as months stretched into years, IBM and Clifford reached an agreement. In 2013, they formalized that arrangement through a compromise agreement. That agreement shifted him from ordinary employee status to IBM's sickness and accident plan. This plan was designed to support employees with long-term health conditions who could not return to work. It guaranteed him 75% of his former salary until he turned 65. The amount worked out to about £54,028 a year. It was steady, guaranteed income, even though he no longer had to perform any duties. Added up across decades, and the total approaches more than £1 million. It was, in effect, a lifetime salary without a requirement to work. For most people, that would sound like an extraordinary benefit. But Clifford grew worried over time. The amount never went up. Inflation chipped away at its value year after year. He saw colleagues receiving raises, cost of living adjustments, and bonuses. Meanwhile, his income stayed frozen where it had been in 2013. To him, this was not security. It was slow erosion. He felt the promise of financial stability was being broken. In 2022, he took the issue to court. He filed a claim at an employment tribunal accusing IBM of disability discrimination. He argued that his pay should have increased in line with those of active employees. Otherwise, he said, he was being treated less favorably because of his condition. Clifford told the tribunal that his situation had worsened. Not only did he still battle mental health difficulties, but he had also been diagnosed with stage 4 leukemia. He said the combination of illness, rising costs, and a static income left him financially vulnerable. He sought an adjustment that would link his pay to inflation or company-wide raises. IBM responded that the plan was already generous. They reminded the tribunal that the benefit was designed as a safety net, not a mechanism for career growth. They said the plan ensured income when many employers might offer nothing more than statutory sick pay. And they pointed out that he remained on the books for more than a decade while performing no work. The tribunal reviewed everything. They looked at his employment contract, the compromise agreement, and the details of the plan. They studied UK disability law to see whether withholding raises counted as unfavorable treatment. They also considered how much the plan was worth compared with what other employees receive. In March 2023, Judge Paul Housego delivered the decision. He dismissed the claim. He said the arrangement was not discriminatory. He reasoned that the plan was itself a benefit reserved only for disabled employees, not a punishment. The judge noted that only a small group of employees qualified for such a plan. Regular employees who simply quit or were terminated did not receive anything close. Receiving 75% of salary for decades, he said, was already a significant advantage. The fact that it did not increase over time did not make it unlawful. Housego called the benefit very substantial even without adjustments. He acknowledged that inflation might reduce its value, but said the law did not require it to keep pace with inflation. He found that IBM had fulfilled its obligation to provide security, not prosperity. That verdict ended Clifford's claim, at least for the moment. Clifford was disappointed. He said he had not acted out of greed. He wanted to protect his family's financial future, especially given his health challenges. He said it was about fairness, not about getting rich. Public reaction was fierce. Some people argued that he was lucky to have such a benefit at all and should simply be grateful. Others sympathized with him, saying that living costs have risen dramatically since 2013 and that a fixed income can quickly feel inadequate. Social media exploded with debates over personal responsibility, corporate duty, and moral fairness. News outlets framed the story as almost unbelievable. A man on sick leave for 15 years asking for a raise. Some treated it as a cautionary tale about entitlement. Others saw it as a window into how little protection long-term disabled employees have from inflation. The case became a talking point far beyond IBM. Legal experts weighed in. They noted that UK disability law is broad, but still requires claimants to prove less favorable treatment. They said this case was interesting because the benefit was exclusive to disabled workers, so the comparison to active employees was not straightforward. They suggested the ruling may discourage similar claims unless laws change. Clifford has appealed. He hopes the decision will be overturned or at least reconsidered. He argues that true equality means ensuring that disabled employees are not quietly impoverished over time. His case, if successful, could force employers to rethink how long-term disability plans are structured. That possibility worries some companies. They fear being required to increase payments for decades, even when employees are not producing work. Such obligations could raise costs dramatically. But for disabled workers, the outcome could mean security that actually keeps pace with real life. This case highlights a broader dilemma. Employment law often draws a line between what is legally required and what feels ethically right. Companies must protect themselves from runaway obligations, but employees must also be able to live with dignity. Clifford's case asks whether freezing pay for decades truly offers dignity. It also asks whether fairness should be measured in absolute terms or relative to inflation and corporate success. It shines a light on a system that may not have been designed for this kind of long absence. Few plans imagine someone being away from work for 15 continuous years. For anyone watching, there is a lesson here. Planning for the future is critical. Employees should understand what happens if illness keeps them away for years. Companies should review their policies to make sure they do not create resentment or hardship. Fairness is not just about numbers. It is about whether people feel respected and supported. It is about whether the promise of security actually holds up when tested. That is why this case resonates so widely. It is not just about one man, but about how society values work and workers. Perhaps the appeal will change the outcome. Perhaps Parliament will one day require inflation adjustments. Or perhaps this case will simply make companies and employees think more carefully about what fair really means. The takeaway is this: justice at work must balance compassion with sustainability. It must give employees confidence that they will not be left behind, while still allowing companies to remain viable. The best systems are those that evolve, that recognize life can be unpredictable and respond with humanity. If you found this story eye-opening, hit like so more people can discover it. Share it with someone who thinks long-term leave is simple or easy. Subscribe to see more stories where law, money, and human dignity collide in ways that make us all stop and think.